Is there an optimal stroke rate for swimming? In this video, I'm going to tell you what are the benefits of having a higher stroke rate versus a lower stroke. Some people do better with a higher stroke rate. Some people do better with a lower stroke rate. It's going to depend on a ton of factors. But first, let's go over a couple fast swimmers to see what is an optimal stroke rate. When we're talking about swimming, we're not just talking about open water. We're talking about swimming in the pool. That's where you can compare yourself to other swimmers and what's effective for them. Now for a 50 free, you're gonna have a higher stroke rate. This is because you don't have as much distance to cover up any kind of inefficiencies in your swim. You're also gonna have a higher stroke rate because it's a very short distance and you're not gonna get as tired. Well, I take it back. You'll probably get really tired, but it's only for a short amount of time, so you can do it. Typical stroke rate for a 50 freestyle is gonna be 60 to 70 strokes per minute. So if you're swimming for 30 seconds in your 50 freestyle, you're looking at like 30 to 35 strokes. If you're taking about a minute, then you're looking at like 60 or 70. Now, if we're gonna compare that to a 1500 meter swim, which is a lot more, then you're gonna be looking at 40 to 50 strokes per minute. Now, I went into another video about stroke rate right here that you can click on and check, or you can look in the description below where I'll link the video where I talk about stroke rate and the importance of it. But I'm gonna dive in a little bit deeper as to how to determine your optimal stroke rate here. Looking back and counting, in the last Olympics, Katie Ledecky had between a 36 and 42 stroke rate in her 800 meter freestyle swim. Now she's a very efficient swimmer and she has really good swim fitness. So she's able to maintain a very fast speed at that stroke rate. Is that gonna be the stroke rate that's right for you? I don't know. It depends on a lot of factors and I'll go over them right now. Factor number one that's gonna determine your stroke rate is gonna be your size. If you're looking at a 5'6" person and a 6'5" person, their stroke is gonna be completely different. That doesn't mean that the 6'5" person is gonna be way faster than this 5'6" person, but it might. That's where the other factors come into play. The size of the person is gonna determine how far they go each stroke, how much water they cover, how fast their arm can turn over, and all that. Typically, if you have like longer arms or longer body, longer torso, everything else might be a little bit slower, but not necessarily. That we'd have to dive into the types of muscle fibers that you have as an athlete. Slow twitch, fast twitch, but let's save that for another video. Your arm span or wingspan is gonna be a big factor in determining your stroke rate. If you have really big arms, like someone I know, then you're gonna be able to cover a lot more distance per stroke. So your stroke rate might be a little bit lower. If you have a little bit shorter of a wingspan, you're not gonna be able to cover as much distance every single stroke. So you might have to turn over a little bit faster to make up for that distance per stroke. Kick is gonna be the next factor. Who am I kidding? Triathletes don't kick. But in all reality, kicking is gonna determine how many strokes you have to take. If you have a 2-beat kick versus a 6-beat kick, then you're gonna have a different stroke rate. The faster kicks that you have, the faster turnover you typically have. The slower amount of kicks or the lower amount of kicks that you have, the slower your turnover is gonna be, for the most part. Here you're gonna see me swimming fast and notice how fast my kick is. Over here now, I'm gonna be swimming a little bit slower and you're gonna notice that my kick rate is gonna go a little bit slower. If we compare both of them right here, you're gonna see that the stroke rate is a little bit faster with the faster kick versus going a little bit slower, having a slower kick. It's kind of like when you're running and you just really pump your arms to get to that finish and your legs just turn over a little bit faster. Same concept for swimming. If you didn't know that tip about running and swimming, how feet speed and arm speed affect one another, then hit the like button. I really appreciate it. Now the next factor I touched on a little bit before is distance per stroke. So how far you travel per stroke. If you're gonna travel 5 meters every single stroke, then for a 25 meter pool, you only need to take 5 strokes. Now that's not very typical in freestyle unless you're going really slow, but we don't want to do that. I was a breaststroker in college, so I knew my stroke rate in college. Every single 25 was 6 strokes except for the dive. Do you happen to know your stroke count every single time you swim? Now stroke count and stroke rate are different. Stroke count is how many strokes you take for the distance that you swim. And stroke rate is how many strokes you take in a minute. So they're similar but different. The next factor that's going to affect your stroke rate is going to be your gender. I'm not going to go into it, but there is a difference. I'm just going to put it that way. The next factor is going to be age. If you're going to compare yourself to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are you stronger or are you a little bit weaker? Do you have more endurance or do you have less endurance? This is all gonna be like training adaptations, and it's dependent on where you are in life right now. Sometimes in life, you don't have enough time to train, so your endurance is gonna go down. Other times you might have an injury and you might lose a little bit of strength, maybe a little bit of flexibility, and that's gonna affect your swim. Or, big news, you might be having a kid on the way and you don't have as much time to train. Remember when I said in the other video that I had big news coming up? Well, my wife and I are expecting a baby in April 2024. We are really excited. This is our first kid, so wish me luck. Along with the age playing a factor, I touched on these during that, but strength is gonna be a really big factor. The stronger you are typically is gonna determine how much water you can pull or push to be able to push yourself forward. And then the last factor that's gonna affect your stroke rate is going to be your endurance or swim fitness, depending on how you wanna look at it. The more fit you are in the water, the more efficient you're gonna be in the water, the more efficient stroke rate you're gonna have. So along with all those factors, how are we gonna be able to improve our stroke rate? How are we even gonna determine our stroke rate? Well, here I'm gonna help you with that. To improve your stroke rate, you gotta improve your swim fitness. A big thing that you can do is just take a self-evaluation. Are you swimming 1 time a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week? Comment below. During those swims, are you swimming for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, hour 15, longer? An easy way to improve your swim fitness is just to swim a little bit more, or to focus on sets, which I'll post right here in the video. An easy way to improve your swim fitness is going to be swimming more times a week, swimming more time per swim per week, or have specific training sets that's gonna improve your fitness overall. I had a video on really good swim sets. So if you wanna watch that, I'll link that in the description below. The next way to improve your stroke rate is going to be improving your swim technique. Now this is what my whole channel is all about, educating triathletes to improve their swim and bike and run. Now let's just say you have all the swim fitness in the world and your technique is very good. How do you improve your stroke rate from that? Well, you got to determine what stroke rate is most efficient for you. An easy set to do that is to do 20 25s at different stroke rates or stroke counts. And those stroke counts are going to kind of correlate to the stroke rate that you're going to be swimming. So let's go ahead and find out what your stroke rate is right now. When you go swim next, I want you to set a timer for 1 minute and just count your strokes as you go. This is going to be better in open water swim because then you don't have to worry about the turns. The second best place to be able to figure this out is going to be in a 50-meter pool, and then followed by a 25-meter pool, and then the typical 25-yard pool, which is what we typically swim in. Now that you have your stroke rate, determine how much distance you covered. Did you swim down and back and then a little bit forward? Next, what you can do is give yourself a little bit of break and do that again with a higher stroke rate. See if you cover more distance. Typically in shorter events or shorter races, you're gonna be able to have a higher stroke rate, but that's gonna make you a little bit tired. So if swimming makes you tired, then you need to slow down that stroke rate in order to save up energy for the rest of the race. I would keep on doing this multiple times to determine what is your stroke rate for that 1 minute. You can compare how much distance you cover each single time and then feel if you're gonna be able to hold that rate for a long period of time. Let's use this scenario. You swam down and back, you swam 60 strokes and it took you 1 full minute. That's roughly 30 strokes per length of the pool that you're swimming. Now, if you do this multiple times and you do 35 strokes, 40 strokes, and you go slower, then try and go backwards. Try 25 strokes, try 20 strokes, and see how far you can travel in that 1 minute. This is gonna be a really good way to improve your distance per stroke. When you improve your distance per stroke, that typically leads to a more efficient swim and an easier swim. Who wants to have an easier swim? Raise their hand. Did anyone actually raise their hand there? There's different technologies out there that you can use. There's like a little tempo trainer here. There's watches that'll tell you your stroke rate. There's goggles that'll tell you your stroke rate now. You could typically look at that after the fact on your watch and your training data, and then go from there. You could use this data to help improve your efficiency every single time you swim. So if day 1, you're gonna focus on your swimming and you're gonna have a higher stroke rate, you're gonna see how well you feel afterwards. Are you really hungry? That typically means you use a lot more energy. And then day 2 of your swim that week, maybe you just have a lower stroke rate the entire time. Do your main set, all that normal things. You're not just swimming straight with fast tempo and then straight with a slower tempo. But do your normal set that you normally would and just have a slower stroke rate or a higher stroke rate. See how you feel and see if you can maintain that for an entire race. There are 4 main reasons why stroke rate is so important. The first one is going to be pacing for your race. This is crucial because you don't want to go out there and go too slow, save up too much energy, and then you're on the bike 5 minutes slower than you want to be because you took longer on the swim. But you also don't want to go out too fast and then run out of fuel and get tired and either have to take a break or you start cramping up. The second reason is going to be for splits and training. Now you can use this stroke rate for longer sets and know that this is the way I want to train for my race. This is the tempo that I can hold for a longer distance swim. So if you determine that you're taking 25 strokes every single lap, and then you do a time trial 1500 because you're training for an Olympic distance swim, you do 25 strokes every single time and see how well you do. That's going to help you ultimately determine what you think you're actually going to be able to swim in the race. Because you're maintaining the effort, you're maintaining the stroke rate that you would in a race. I know I've had some troubles with this in the past where I swim at a slower stroke rate and then I try and race at a higher stroke rate, and I get tired about like 80% of the way through. Now, luckily I'm able to recover because I can feel out my pace and kind of slow down. But I realize that if I don't train at a higher stroke rate where I'm normally going to race at it, then I'm going to be tired. So I'm specifically doing sets to improve my stroke rate in the practice so that I can replicate how I'm going to swim in the race. Now, if you already know your stroke rate, then great. Share this with someone that would really benefit from determining what stroke rate would be best for them in their swim. Maybe they're having a little bit trouble panicking in the beginning of the swim. Might just be spinning their arms a little too fast and raising their heart rate too high. So practicing their stroke rate can really help out your friend. If you have any questions about this stuff, please comment it below. I respond to every single question that goes down there, and I really appreciate the time that you're taking to watch my video. I know I said I had exciting news in this video to share with you, and I already shared my really exciting news. I actually have 2 things I want to share with you. I have my own men training. So if you're an athlete that gets injured a little bit more frequently than you want to, and want to be coached by someone that has worked with a ton of athletes that have had injuries, then go to my website. I linked it in the description. We also have some swag. Let me know what you think of the logo. I really like it.